to the West Clinic Hellness to Wellness podcast. This is taking people that are sick, out of hope, frustrated or confused with their medical recommendations, or are searching for another pathway to health, and it's finding incredible patient outcomes of people just like you. And it's not just saying it. You can see and hear the hundreds of patient success stories on our website, blog, YouTube channel, and of course, right here, coming at you with over a century of patient success in the West Clinic system. Here's your host, Dr. Jason West.
All right, you guys, it's all about loose ligaments. I'm Dr. Jason West. Thank you for joining our program. Ligaments can cause so much pain, and you know what? They don't heal as fast as muscles. They really don't heal that fast unless you do something with a specific mineral, and the mineral is manganese. And there's some neat things that you can do with collagen peptoids and acetylmeristoliate and how to get a healthier joint function and rehabilitation. I'm going to share that with you tonight. So it's the loose ligament program that we're talking about in 2022. So welcome to the program. As always, I want to give some shout outs to my peeps. And the peeps are the people inside of our West Clinic system. Number one, the patients. Number 1A, the team. And a shout out to our gifted healers, Dr. Nelson, and the world's greatest nurse practitioner, Shelby. And of course, all of our support staff that make this show possible. Our second sponsor is Personalized Organs, Tissues, and Cells. It's the best nutrition on the market. They work with me consistently to be developing new and cutting-edge products, and so we want to give a shout-out to POTC. So you guys, we need to talk about ligaments. I mean, there are so many things that get neglected in healthcare. The pituitary gland, the thymus, and then it's ligaments, because we're always talking about muscles, and we talk about joints. Well, what is stabilizing the joint? Well, that's the ligament. So I just put together some couple quick notes on this. It's the loose ligament program. So let's go through and talk about how we can shrink wrap the rubber bands. Now, what do I mean by rubber bands? This is an example of a ligament. Now, let me get myself out of the way here so that we can see this. So this is a classic example of a ankle, and this happens so many times. People will be walking down, the sidewalk, and then they'll trip and they'll fall, or they'll have an athletic injury, and guess what? That ankle just bothers them, therefore forward. And it's so, and I've had people come in years later. Hey, I got in a car accident. I was in a wrestling injury. I slipped and fell in the ice. My kid jumped on me wrong. I was skiing. I put my hand down to balance myself. And look, my wrist crunches. My ankle's not stable. My knee's always coming out. My shoulder dislocates. Well, what happens is those connective tissue bands that hold the joint together get stretched. And I always tell people it's like a rubber band, right? You stretch it out like this as far as it will go. And then if you let it go before it breaks, what happens is it never returns to its same size. That's exactly what happens with ligaments. And so when people are saying, well, what happens to these things? How come they just don't heal, fast? Well, we're going to go over why that occurs, because ligaments, just the definition is it stabilizes the bones. It's not a muscle. It's not a tendon or a meniscus or cartilage. It's a connective tissue that goes from bone to bone. And what I tell people is it's like a guide wire. Like you see these telephone poles with these stabilizing wires. That's what I think a ligament is. It helps to stabilize the joints. You got to have some movement in the joint. That's what joints are designed to do. Some joints move a ton. Some joints move just a little amount, but by definition, joints move, and that's what's happening with the ligaments. So when the ligaments get stretched, bad things happen. The joints can't stabilize itself, and so I put this graphic up here of a runner, because runners and ranchers and ropers, they make great patients, and the reason why is because they're always hurting themselves. They don't know how to really take it easy. And I married into an agricultural family and a farming family. I mean, if they don't cough up along, they're to work. And with runners, if they don't get their running high, they just don't function. So I kind of have this joke when people are all healthy, what should I do? Well, you should be a rancher or you should be a runner, because they're always going to be coming back in because they're stressing the joint. So let's talk about what we can do to heal the joint. And really how we want to do that is through the ligament system, and particularly minerals. And this is most doctors have no idea what we're talking about when it comes to mineral health and the joints. Well, a lot of guys are familiar with, glucosamine and chondroitin, and there's some mixed feedback and reviews on that. But what really helps ligament health is this mineral called manganese. And it frequently gets confused with magnesium, but manganese is the key joint, because if you don't have it, it causes laxity, which, by the way, there are a couple bad guys in the universe. When I say bad guys, microorganisms, primarily a certain type of bacteria that needs manganese to function, just like people need iron. Like if you don't have iron, you get anemic. If you don't have manganese, you can't stabilize the joint. You don't have healthy pituitary function. And one of the chronic bacterial markers likes to chew up manganese. Bacteria need, that's why so many people with chronic low-grade infections struggle with joint health and joint pain and hormone imbalance, because manganese not only does it help the ligaments, it's really healthy for running the pituitary gland and giving you sex hormone precursors. So manganese is the key mineral. A quick fact here, this is so common for people to say, I wish I would have I wish I would have broken the area instead of just straining it. And a lot of times the ligament will move right into the muscle coordination for the joint, and thereby, altering the muscle function or shutting off the muscles. And it's fascinating because muscles heal a lot faster than ligaments. Remember, by definition, ligaments are sprain and muscles are a strain. Strains have a tendency to heal because they have a better vascular supply. They typically have a little bit better oxygen supply. And usually, the literature stating that about 6 weeks after injuring a muscle, a lot of times bones will heal in about 6 weeks. But ligaments, the literature is showing they are a lot different or slower healer. So the timeline for soft injury for ligaments, it may be about 50% of the normal strength at 6 months, 80% after a year, and sometimes the literature is showing it can take up to 2 years for ligaments to heal if they're not accelerated. And we're going to talk about an acceleration program, but that's why so many people that have, a whiplash injury, or they sprain their ankle in the middle of the season and they're like, it's just not the same, because the tensile strength of that ligament, that bone stabilizer, isn't healthy, and it just hammers the joint, and it causes a lot of joint instability because those the structures aren't there. So it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years unless you take it up a notch. And so here's what I would recommend as far as ways to help the body to heal. And then I'm going to show you my favorite way in just a minute. It's a regenerative injection therapy that we do medical supervision at the office and some other things. But there are a lot of things that you can do outside the office. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And then I'm going to go talk about a couple different molecules and compounds that are really, really important, like proteolytic enzymes. We're going to talk about acetylmyrostoleate. We're also going to talk about quercetin and rutin and resveratrol, and how those really help the body to get healthier quicker. And then also some things that help modulate the inflammatory response, but are not over-the-counter aspirins like Tylenol or Aleve or naproxen. Like, I have some real concerns with the long-term use of those medications, and I think most healthcare providers do. So what can we do for ligament healing? Here is the pathway right here. Number one, I know this is overrated. I talk about this every single week. You know what it is? Like, get your water uptake. It's so important. I consider this an essential nutrient of hydrogen and oxide. And oxygen is so important for flushing out toxins, improving circulation. And I'll say it again and again and again. Water, water, water. If you think drinking enough water, especially if you have injured ligaments, try and drink just a little bit more. The next thing is the reduction of inflammatory foods, white sugar primarily. And I hammer on this because There's a great book by Nancy Appleton called The Sugar Addiction, 143 Ways Where Sugar Ruins Your Health. It impacts your phagocytic index, which is your little building block guys that go in and they clean up the infection when it's not working. So that's super duper important. And also what we can do for the improvement in the vascular, so you're not getting sound blasted with all these sugar crystals and stuff like that. So yes, you can sweeten foods with fruit. I think honey is metabolized differently. Pure maple syrup is the considerations, but man-made refined white sugar, it's not good for you. The next thing is getting some nutritional therapy. So I wanted to show you guys some of the things that I've put together for people just to give them a good source of information. And here it is right here. So one of the things that I really like to tell people is having proteolytic enzymes, and you can get this right underneath this presentation if you don't have a good source. Now, there's lots of places to get this. I just want to make sure that you have the best source, and this is obviously from our sponsor, POTC, but it's good for proteolytic enzymes and lymphatic draining in my clinical experience, and things that have like inflammatory processes to help correctly help the body. And this is one of my favorite things. The neat things about this is you don't even have to take very much. It's a natural clearance of proteins and inflammation. It's called whip, because we're going to whip the pain. And next thing we have is something called Triple P, which is an inflammatory modulator. It helps to, especially with people that have a nutrient poor diet. You have some surprising to me is how many guys will come in and they'll spend so much money on their hobbies, whether it's golf or fishing or motorcycles or running, and then they're like, yeah, no, I just want to eat vegetables. Like I've had this happen twice this week, and it's only Wednesday. Guys are like, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. Well, you are what you eat, you are what you absorb. So all of the stuff that I'm talking about, the best place to get it is your diet. There's no question. A healthy diet of alive foods means that you're healthy and alive. And then one of my very favorite things is this product called Joint Freedom. You can get this right on the West Clinic website, because what it does is it works with reducing inflammation and antioxidant protection in the joint. It has some flavoxyloid, which is a bioflavonoid. It is really good on your GI tract. It has some collagen peptides and something called Fortigel, which helps the connective tissue to put together. And it's really good for helping the tissues to hydrate. Now, this is based upon my clinical experience and observation, and we actually have it all together in what we call the Arthritis Comprehensive Program that helps specifically with the ligaments. Now, if you have access to that, that's fantastic. And here's what I would recommend. Essential fatty acid. You want to make sure that you have some glucosamine. I'm not that big a fan of chondroitin. I think the molecule's too big to get into the joint. That's just my observation and some reading that I've done. I love something called cetyl myristoyl, turmeric, and then I think Wilson factor is just so underutilized in healthcare. Wilson factor is named after Dr. Wilson. It is an anti-stiffness factor for chronic joint problems, and it helps for the ligaments to bend and to move easier, in my opinion. Like I just see some really good outcomes with what's called Wilson factor. WULZEN. So going back to how we can help in loose ligaments, you want to make sure you improve your water intake, you increase your healthy alive food intake, nutritional therapy, biomechanical alignment, whether it's chiropractic and massage therapy and physical therapy, like all of those things to get the body back in alignment, I think are really healthy. And then I wanted to tell people a little bit about regenerative injection therapy, because we've got some really amazing outcomes of people that had chronic problems, joint problems, labral tears that have responded really nicely to regenerative joint therapy. And by the way, it's not just me saying this. I've got hundreds of video testimonials on our YouTube channel and our Facebook and our website and our daily blog that shows how healthy that people are doing. So with that being said, I just wanted to be able to show that in just a second. So it's called prolozone therapy, and it's how to rehabilitate injured joints. And how you do it is you use a vitamin infusion, a oxidative medicine therapy, and then what it does is it helps to make the ligaments stronger. So I'm going to show you guys that in this clip in just a second. As always, thank you so much for participating. If you have any comments, I just want you to put them down in the comments section. If you need help getting any quality nutritional products that help with ligaments, you can just put it right underneath this, ligaments, and my team will pick it up and help you to get what you need. If you need an appointment, you should reach out to us. We are booked out for a long time, but periodically we have cancellations that we may be able to get you in. And if you're living with pain that's coming from loose ligaments, or you keep spraining your ankle or something, you should check us out. I can't wait to share with you this regenerative injection therapy.
Hello everyone, Dr. Jason West with some ideas about arthritis, about bone-on-bone arthritis, chronic knee injuries, chronic hip problems, back problems. It's this wonderful therapy called prolozone therapy. And here's how I was introduced to it. I had a patient that was coming in the office that was getting adjusted consistently, but the adjustments just really didn't hold. And he went and saw a doctor in Nevada that did a prolozone treatment on him. It helped to stabilize the ligaments so that the adjustment hold. And he told me about it. I went and learned from this doctor about how to do this amazing therapy that helps with arthritis. Now, most of the time when people have arthritis, it's really like they have a rusty hinge. The joints don't move very well. You get chronic inflammation into the joint. It hurts to do activities of normal daily living. It can be inflamed. It can be hot. It can fill up with fluid. I mean, all of these things are associated when there's not enough space in between the joint surfaces. Now, typically the medical treatment for that is they do a series of cortisone therapy, or eventually you may end up with some type of surgery, a hip or a knee replacement. And this isn't an anti-medicine video, but there's so many things that you can do before you have to get surgery. Now, one of the most common things medically they do is some type of cortisone injection, or maybe a Synvisc type injection. And I like to tell people, I'm kind of joking and kind of serious when I say this. If you're driving down the road and you look down in your car dashboard and you see the oil light come on, you know something that is going wrong with the car. And the medical community gives you a piece of black electrician's tape, you put it over the oil light, and voila, you have no more oil light problems. Common sense tells us that we're going to end up with a major overhaul if we don't fix the problem. And this prolozone therapy is a fantastic way to fix it before you need a great big overhaul. Now, what is prolozone therapy? It's a proliferative therapy using vitamins and minerals and some oxidative medicine that actually make the tissues heal. So it's actually a semi-permanent restorative type therapy. So here's how you do the therapy. You take a little syringe with a little tiny needle on it, and you can actually take a vitamin solution and inject the joint surfaces, inject the ligaments, and inject the muscles around the area. Put in the building blocks, and you tap into the body's restorative medicine abilities. Now, when I talk about restorative medicine, if you bump up against something and you get a bruise or you cut yourself, the body sends the immune system and the healing cells to that area to heal up the problem. Now, the same thing happens when you get a new stomach every 10 days, you get a new liver about every 3 months, you get a new bone system about every 6 months, and proliferative therapy using oxidative medicine, the prolozone therapy, just taps into your body's ability to heal itself. It's a little bit different than taking an oral supplement like glucosamine or chondroitin or papaya or bromelain or any of these natural over-the-counter medicines or therapies for joint pain, because this actually puts more of the building blocks directly in the area. I think it works a lot better. Now, I haven't had any problems with contraindications. I love using this natural approach because the worst thing that usually happens with people is that they stay the same. You can't make people worse. There's no side effects. It's not like putting cortisone therapy where you can't do as many treatments as it possibly needs, because it knocks down the inflammatory systems and it actually can damage the bones and the ligaments. I've had people where we've been able to do this repeated times over the last 10, 12 years, and we don't have any problems because we're just putting natural things into the area. Some really, really neat outcomes of people that can't walk upstairs, they can't throw a baseball, they can't golf, they can't fish, they can't garden, and we do this restorative therapy and they get their life back. Now, what's really neat about this is it's really cost effective. Usually the treatments are anywhere from $150 to $300, and so if you're looking for a healthcare provider that's doing this, that's usually the price structure that you're looking at. You're looking at about 3 to 5 different treatments, and then usually you have to do a follow-up treatment about every 12 to 24 months. So it's a really neat long-term solution where you don't have to use drugs or you don't have to use surgery for your arthritic condition.
Hey everyone, Dr. West and Craig with just an amazing story. Craig hasn't been in the office for 2 years, and he said if I wasn't feeling so good, I would obviously have to be back. And we started talking about what it was like when he first came in, and I was like, we have to go and tell the story. So Craig, you came in scheduled for back surgery, but several years ago, right?
Yeah, several years ago.
And what was happening, and what were you doing at the time? Because it's just such a neat story to be a part of.
Well, my back, I was always going to chiropractors. It wouldn't stay in. Back was always out. I was always going back into the chiropractor and get realigned, and it would work for a while, and then it would, and it got to the point where I'd really abused it to the point where I actually went to different doctors and ended up going to a surgeon. They said I needed surgery. The disc had deteriorated to the point where, they was going to have to go into it, pinching a nerve, just miserable, a lot of pain.
And it was making it so you couldn't even function.
No, I couldn't. I was curled up in a ball, just pain, couldn't even hardly walk. Sitting down hurt, walking hurt. I mean, so I was at the point where I was ready to, and I was actually scheduled for like 2 weeks out for back surgery when a friend told me to come and talk to you guys down here.
Okay.
So.
And what do we do for you?
You looked at the MRI, you looked at pictures, and you said you thought you could help me, and let's try to get some injections, some prolozone injections. And I says, well, what if I got to lose? So we did some injections.
So everyone, we did a vitamin injection with some ozone, and then what happened?
It started feeling better.
Yeah. Did you have to get surgery?
No, didn't have surgery.
No
Thank
surgery.
goodness.
And anyway, it was a really neat experience because you were able to keep your auto body shop.
Yeah, well, and it's not easy. That's a hard way to make a living. People don't realize. And yeah, there's a lot of lifting and being a little guy and thinking I'm bigger doesn't work either. But
and then after that, we had a shoulder episode. So tell everybody what that was.
Well, I fell on this shoulder. I fell on the ice really hard, just slipped and fell, and I landed hard, and I couldn't even use this arm. I mean, I couldn't even lift my arm, and then I thought I had faith that you could fix that shoulder, and I remember coming in one time and you did an injection and it hurt really bad, and you told me that was good, because you hit a spot that was important,
Right.
And you were right, because right after that, that's what really made a big difference, was getting that.
Okay.
But now.
Right. So. We're able to avoid a back surgery.
Yeah,
avoid a shoulder
avoid
surgery.
shoulder surgery.
It's been 2 years since you've been in. Feeling pretty good. Just a little bit of maintenance work. We're doing a new spot today, or it's the same.
Just lower back.
Okay.
That's a little tune-up, I guess.
A little tune-up. So pretty cool that we've gone 2 years between treatments. And if there's anybody out there watching, Craig, what would you tell them?
Believe me if I tell you to come and talk to Jason. I tell people and they just look at me like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. They get confused between a cortisone shot. A lot of people think it's a cortisone shot. That's not what it is. They don't work. They didn't work for me.
So the difference between cortisone, it's an anti-inflammatory, and the prolozone procedure is proliferative therapy using ozone. So it makes the body go into healing mode. It's 180 degrees opposite of cortisone. Craig, is it okay to put on social media?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to finish up. Really cool story, helping avoid a back surgery, a shoulder surgery. Now we just do a little maintenance work. Just a really special case to be a part of. This is Dr. West and Craig signing out.
I was in a car wreck in July of 2012, rear-ended. The guy was going about 50 miles and we were stopped. So I have a couple blown out discs and a bulging disc in my lower back, and come up here to get shots. I get prolozone therapy shots. Probably gotten about eight series of shots so far. IV injections. Whatever he decides to give me, I get.
Yeah, and are they helping?
Oh yeah,
So
very much so.
Give me an idea how much they're helping. And what did they do for you prior that wasn't working? I mean, you're here because whatever you tried before didn't work, I assume, right?
Right. Well, when I came up here, I was in so much pain. Walking, any type of daily movements, working was very difficult for me. I had not worked for about a month and a half when I come up here, and after my very first series of shots, I was able to go back to work, and the improvement's just been drastic. At the end of the series of shots, I think I got 6 series of shots all in a row every 2 weeks. I was probably about 75% improvement. I come back up again today. I haven't been here for a couple of months, and I've just been doing a lot of hard work, manual labor and whatnot, and just kind of needed a tune-up, but I'm nowhere near as bad as I was when I first came up.
And so what gave you the courage to come to the West Clinic?
Pain, mainly, desperation. I had gotten to the point where either I was battling, trying not to take pain pills, and I would have had another opportunity to do a spinal injection, a steroid injection. I had one before, which gave me a few months of relief, but then after the few months, the pain was so intense that I could have went and got another injection, but then I learned that they actually make the problem worse. And so I was debating on doing that, and then, you know, the cost of it and whatnot. And when I heard about this place, I called and made an appointment. And I had to wait like 3 weeks to get up here, but once I finally did, it was well worth it.